Here we go.
Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Where you gonna be tonight? Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. There's magic coming. Get ready for the rest of your life.
Hello and welcome to SassafrasCast, a podcast full of witchy insights to help you lead your sassiest life. I am Rorie Kelly, a tarot reader, singer-songwriter, and all-around personal growth nerd from Long Island, New York. This is definitely the first time I have done this intro tonight. There were no mistakes. And I would like to introduce you to my co-ghost. See what I did there? Delia Raven Stanley from Prettie Creepie. Are we Delia today, or are we Raven today, or are we everything today?
Everything.
Cool.
I do like to use Raven for the pretty creepy stuff.
I like it.
I don't know why, because it seems appropriate. Raven is my middle name, just in case anyone's wondering. For real.
For realsies.
People ask that sometimes. They don't
Not
believe
pretend. You are really part Corvid in a way.
it's true.
So we are going to be doing a super spooky special. If you ever read like the Babysitter's Club books growing up, which I did, they had Babysitter's Club super special books, and they were like twice as long, and all of the babysitters wrote their experiences, and it was like a really cool book in the series. It was like $1 more. It was great. So this is a super spooky special, and what we're going to do this episode, we are still going to do our witchy weather report because that's fun. We should do the witchy weather report. Then we are going to get into some user submitted stories. If you are tuned in right now live, it's because either you're a patron, hi patrons, I love you, or because you submitted one of the stories and you deserve to see this live. We're sharing your stories, right? Yeah. Okay. So, Raven is a professional ghost walker and storyteller amidst other talents, and the Corvid behind Prettie Creepie. So we're going to tell you a little bit later more about Prettie Creepie, which is like, it's spelled Prettie Creepie. So it's like pastel goth. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how I feel about that spelling. Although I don't know that I would
like
describe
Betty
your fashion
Page.
as pastel
That's
goth.
what I was actually like thinking of, like
Oh,
the
like
Betty
Betty Page?
spelling.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So if that helps
Yeah.
or if people to remember, like think Betty Page, like the way Betty spells.
Think
Thank
about
you.
Betty Page.
Both
But
Nanny
spooky.
and Michael have now brought me beers, so that means I have 2.
That's
What do you
amazing.
mean we're sharing? Now he's taking away. Wow. Okay, bye. That was creepy when a shadowy man comes in your room, steals your beer. Oh my God.
Dark and shadowy man. The creepiest part is that you don't have a beer anymore.
Well, I have one.
We will be drinking adult beverages during this broadcast. We recommend that you do too. It'll make it spookier and more fun. I'm actually just drinking water, which is a boring adult beverage, but we'll see if we can upgrade that in a little bit. And if you're listening to the replay or to the podcast itself, just audio, I want you to know you can see this on video. You can go to YouTube and type in the word SassafrasCast, all one word, and you will find me on the YouTube. And I hope you will. And I hope you'll subscribe while you're there, because I don't yet have enough subscribers to have a fancy URL like youtube.com/SassafrasCast is what I would love to have, but I don't. So search for me and subscribe to me, and you will be helping the SassafrasCast movement. Be a part of the movement. Let's get going with the witchy weather report. Then we are going to move into some spoopy stories and have a great time. Water isn't boring. Thank you, Karina.
My husband would agree. Part of the Hydro Homie community on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's his Hydro Homie name? How can we
Big
follow
Mike
him?
Drinks Water.
Big Mike Drinks Water.
Yeah.
Honestly, like the most wholesome YouTube channel you've ever seen.
It's just him drinking water. So
it's just him
you need
drinking
to stay
water.
hydrated. You follow him, and then multiple times a day, you'll get the little notification. You'll be like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, water inspiration.
Yeah. I'll drink some water. So that.
I'll drink some water right now.
Yeah.
Hydration checkpoint, kids.
Important when you're storytelling.
Absolutely. Keeping hydrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are both singers, and I think you would probably agree with me that talking will make you lose your voice before singing will.
I've been pretty lucky. We also have slick little microphone packs, Amazon, $30, and
Oh,
they have the little
nice.
microphone, and so that has been a game changer,
Ooh, I could
not
really
having to,
see
like,
that.
scream at 25 people, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because you do your ghost walks. Tell us a little bit about your ghost walks.
Sure, we walk around downtown Wilmington, tell a little weird history, some spooky stories, and it's just a fun time, and, of course, getting to walk around a downtown area like that, I feel like that's a nice way to get to know a city. Going
Yeah.
into a place, like, a lot of tourists come in, and I'm like, "This is nice." And you get a feel for where you are, get to know a little history of the location here. Got to go home with some anecdotes.
Yes, but they're spooky anecdotes, which is like the best
Absolutely.
kind.
And people capture weird photos all the time.
Ooh, like with like
Absolutely.
orbs and stuff.
Orbs, big time, lots of orbs. I have, wonder where I can put this. It's on the Ghost Walk of Old Wilmington Facebook, and there's a great photo out of one of the places that I go that was captured on one of my tours of just this weird apparition in a graveyard. It's just a very classic, like, what is that ghostly photo?
That's lovely.
People
I
capture weird stuff like that a lot.
That's really cool.
Absolutely.
So, as you can see, I called in the big guns. I got a professional for this episode to tell you the spoopy stories in a spoopier and better way than I could. I will also be, I have my MIDI keyboard and my loop pedal hooked up at this time. So, yes, while Raven reads you the spoopy stories, there will be some spoopy background music. Let's do the witchy weather report. So, at this time, I pull a card at the beginning of every episode and I kind of give a little witchy weather report and let y'all know what the energy is doing right now. We are coming up on Halloween. Samhain, if you are of the Celtic pagan persuasion, a time when the veil is thin. I actually really do feel like the veil is thin a little bit. I feel, and maybe I'm just creeping myself out, but I do feel those feelings, the thin veil feelings. So let me pull a card and kind of share, if you are listening to this, whatever time, whatever moment in time you were listening to this, my intention is that the card I'm about to pull be information that will aid you and abet you on your path right now for your highest good. Here is the card. It is the Two of Staves, and it is pointing backward. So I'm reading with a circular deck today. It's called the Tarot of the Cloisters.
Mm.
All the cards are circular, meaning you don't just get reversals, you get all kinds of wacky things, right? So this is a Two of Staves, and it is kind of pointing into the past, if you will, right? Like here's the top, here's the bottom. The Two of Staves is a card about being ready, having the resources to move forward in your life. And it's kind of a portal card. It's a gateway card. Are you going to step through the doorway that these two staves create and go after your dreams and answer the call? Staves are very much about answering the call, fire, passion, what excites you. And here we see that this person has a golden orb in their hand, indicating kind of like the world is in their hands. They have what they need to go after their journey. Now, the fact that the staves are kind of a little bit backwards suggests that they may be doing some processing right now. We all may be doing some processing of our past before we feel ready to move forward on our journey. After the whatever it is, like 19 months that 2020 has been, I can't imagine why any of us would feel that way. But this is our current energy right now. There is an invitation to move forward. There's an invitation to go through the portal and begin creating our future, whatever that means to us, the future we want, the one we are excited about, and the one we're like, oh, I wonder if I'm good for that future or not. Let's find out. I want to test myself. It indicates that there's a piece of ourselves we have to pull out of the past. Perhaps we have to do some evolution. Perhaps we just need some reprocessing. Perhaps we just need to allow our past to kind of ride in the back seat along with us and pipe up when it's ready, but we are still going to take the driver's seat. That is our witchy weather report for today. Here is the next thing we are going to do before we get into the spooky stories. We are both like tarot deck artwork nerds, and we thought we would maybe pull some death cards out of our different tarot decks and talk about the symbolism. I have several tarot decks with me. Am I ready? Did I prepare by pre-selecting the death cards? No, I did not.
I did. So if
You
you'd like me
did.
to go
So maybe
first.
you can start.
I just also want to mention, do you still have that card that you just pulled by any chance?
Oh gosh, I've popped it right back in. Oh no, it's right here. Oh, look at that. Here it is. Please
Can we just
talk.
see it a little closer?
Please share your thoughts and opinions.
I just thought it's just interesting. I kind of resemble this card. I
Ooh,
also
yes.
have this like gateway vibe going on behind me. I always think, what I
Mhm.
always think of when I see this kind of thing is the never ending story where you have to go through, but you have to be like sure of yourself, or they zap you with the lightning eyes.
Oh my
I
god,
think
like
that's a
that
classic
still terrifies me.
representation of going through that sort of doorway portal. Like you have to be sure of yourself to get to the next spot. Not that it's going to be easy. What's behind me is the moon card representation, like
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
a tapestry of it, but it does have that vibe on either side, and especially this one. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Let's talk about death.
Let's talk about death.
Let's talk
So
about
this
death,
was your
baby.
idea, and I love it. So
This was
tell
my
me
idea.
what made you feel like being deathy today.
Well, as you can see, it's kind of my thing. What made me feel like being deathy today? Good question. I think the ghost walk has rubbed off on me in a lot of like personal style ways, but Prettie Creepie came out of wanting to merge that vibe. You had said something about being like a fashionable like swamp creature or something before.
Yes.
And I like,
Yeah.
I think we're all striving to sort of reconcile that particular duality. Not that it's some sort of hard truth that needs to be stuck by, but rather that it's more playful and fun. And I think that when we think of death and death cards, we think of life also. And so it kind of leads us to those turnarounds, that kind of thing that we're talking about. And I think we can see that in a lot of the representations in these cards. Let's start with the classic, right?
Let's do it.
The classic. Love this rose on this card, by the way. I've been thinking even maybe about getting like a tattoo of it.
I
See
love
death
that rose.
riding. Love it. And I think it's like a English family rose reference. Not sure.
And
But
it feels like
becomes
a little bit of a
classic symbol.
callback to like the Fool's Rose to me. Am I crazy to say
Sure.
that?
Well, and there's a lot of rose. Yeah, it's almost like the fool's rose is budded, smaller. This one is bloomed, riding around. People don't look thrilled, do they? They don't look super happy about this. And I pulled another one out of an anatomy deck that sort of mirrors that. Sometimes tarot decks try to stay kind of close. I think this one did.
Mm-hmm.
But something I appreciate about this, other than its bones, and you can see that I like that kind of thing.
It's nice. It's nice to have some bones.
They add a couple of things. So we'll see the symbol for Scorpio in here, the symbol for water. People sometimes forget that Scorpio's water vibes. And look, we got the moon, just like the moon's behind me.
I love the moon phases, kind of highlighting that cyclical nature of life and death.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in some other cards that I have here, especially that hardcore agricultural connection. And with Scorpio here, ruled by Pluto, that underground vibe, right?
I read I heard from Judith Wyman, who is a patron and sometimes you'll hear her comments on the broadcast sometimes, especially during the Witchy Weather Report. She's an astrologer, and our generation, yours and mine, and a lot of people, because Pluto is one of those really long rotation planets, has our Pluto in Scorpio.
Okay.
Which and Pluto rules Scorpio, right? So it's kind of like saying our death and secrets are in our death and secrets. Which might be why we're all
here it is.
Spooky kids.
All on one card for us.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked this is an easy peasy deck. I'm not even sure where I picked this up.
Oh,
And it's just
let's share
nice.
too for people who are listening rather than viewing. What decks are we looking at right now?
Great. Yeah. The other one, the first one was just the Rider-Waite deck. This one, I think it's called the Bold of you to assume I remember what the name of all of these decks are.
We will
Some
have
sort
that
of
in the show notes
anatomy
for you,
deck.
though.
This one was only the majors, you
Uh-huh.
know. I don't really remember what this was. This might even have been like a Michael's, like Halloween grab.
Nice.
And it's just very
It's nice.
simple.
It's pleasantly moody. I've gotten some cool witchy stuff at Michael's. I actually got a huge container of tiger eye from Michael's, and it
Nice.
was in their like for some reason, it was in their spring decor section, and it was the end of spring, so I got it for half off.
Excellent. I don't know how that happens. I
Right, I know.
similarly, right. I mean, sometimes, whatever. I saw some opinion pieces like, oh, Spirit Halloween has all this tarot stuff. Like, whatever. So like,
Yeah.
buy the Spirit Halloween
I'll
tarot, and if you like it,
yeah. I
Mm.
also will cheerfully go to Spirit Halloween and Michael's and other stores like that and buy the Halloween stuff like garments and wear them all year
Right.
round because that is who I am as
And
a person.
I do because I do for work also.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
need the
happy to
excuse
go
of
to all the
having a job about it. I'm just
I
like, yes,
love that. I have that excuse. I love it.
let me just dress this way because.
I like how this one
So
added the rose, but just like easy. They were like, and a rose on the
So if
side.
you've got a tarot deck at home, maybe pull out your death card and kind of play along at home. Feel free. You can pretty much, if you type in the name of the tarot deck and the card, you can probably find a photo on Google Images for you to look at. So we looked at the Rider-Waite death card, which is, the very traditional tarot symbolism drawn by Pixie Pamela Coleman Smith, the amazing Black woman behind the tarot. We looked at the mysterious anatomy tarot deck,
Some kind of anatomy deck.
which we'll try and figure that out and put it for you in the show notes by the time this goes to broadcast.
Maybe I can like Google Lens them.
Yeah,
This
and
one I'm
then
pretty sure was from Michael's, and I've got two
a
more
Michael's
here.
tarot deck. Cool.
Here's the thing: I don't know what this one is either.
Great. We have mystery death cards here.
Michael got me this kind of sexy one, but I thought,
Ooh.
she looked pretty BA, and she has the scythe. When I'm ghost walking around town to represent death, I carry the scythe too. Talking about agricultural connections, there it is.
So
The
for those
cycle.
who can't see this is like a like woman dressed in this cool like medievally kind of long dress with like a nifty belt with I think things hanging off of it and a scythe and
Looks like bones to me.
bones.
And
Nice.
maybe some other objects. Yeah.
So we have
She
this
also has
feminine
a
representation of
quiver
death.
and a bow.
Nice.
She also has an hourglass next to her feet, so another nice representation of time. Also want to shout out Saturn.
Yes. Saturn
Shout out to
hour.
Saturn for agricultural unceasing time, which no one can
Yeah.
escape.
Time keeps going whether we like it or not. By the
And
way,
finally,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just like my favorite deck that I have, my Crow deck.
Yes, I
And I
love
thought
your
this
crow
was good
deck.
representatory because in this one we can see death. We see the crow. He has bones. He's dead, but rising. Some sort of spirit is left.
Yeah, I really like that. There's a sense of like reincarnation or moving on to the next level,
And ghosts.
and ghosts. We will be talking about ghosts today.
Something is left.
Something remains. And is that just the Crow Tarot? Is that can people find that by looking up the Crow Tarot? Nice. So if you're tuned in live with us, which we do have a few people watching, if you've got a tarot deck, feel free to pull out the death card, drop some comments in there, either about what we're talking about. I know I have some readers tuned in, or drop some comments about what you see in your own deck, because that's really interesting to me. I love that. I do see one comment from Hannah who says, so much childhood trauma from that movie. We were talking about the Neverending Story before.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I like look back and think about a lot of movies that were kids movies that we watched, and now I watch them as an adult and I'm like, that's so scary. Like, how did I get through that? I was on a thread in Facebook the other day where they were talking about how The Brave Little Toaster, someone was like, The Brave Little Toaster is a horror movie. Make no mistakes.
I just thought about wanting to rewatch that. It's very difficult to find the first one, like streaming and stuff. And I'm always like, why? Because I
Why?
think it's a little
It's
traumatic.
pretty dark.
Yeah.
It's pretty dark. And it's like musical, like a lot of kids movies are kind of musicals, you know, and
Yeah.
the songs are pretty dark. Yeah, really interesting. Anyway, now that we've gone down memory lane and talked about our frightening childhood movies,
I like how we're this is the horror episode. We've named so far as horror movies The Brave Little Toaster. And that was how
and the never-ending
story.
This is like real hardcore, guys. We hope you are ready for some real spooky stuff.
Scary.
So I also have a couple of death cards which is more than a couple, to share with you from these various decks. I'm glad that you chose to share something from the Smith-Waite deck, because that allows us to kind of get that baseline tarot symbolism. This is from the Tarot of the Cloisters, which I did my Witchy Weather report with. Tarot of the Cloisters is like a cool stained glass style deck. So it kind of gives you those cool Gothic churchy vibes. And this is really simple. A lot of these images are, Smith-Waite similar, but, simplified because stained glass. We do have a flag with a white rose, and we see Death in a cloak. You cannot see Death's face, but there is a scythe, and Death is riding a white horse. And the white horse has like this really pretty bow, by the way. I just think that's nice that the horse is decked out. I read this really interesting fantasy series about Morag, who is a death analog in this fantasy series, and she rode a pale horse, and her horse was like her companion because everyone was terrified of her because she was death. And she was actually just a very, lonely individual because no one wanted to get to know death. And so it was just this really interesting analog of we don't think about relating to death. We only think about fearing death as a concept, right? And it's interesting to kind of humanize death and allow like that notion of like the kind of like sacred individual who like carries the torch of allowing cycles to close and rebegin, Next up, I have for you the Wildwood Tarot. I've been reading this from this deck a lot lately because it's just really struck me in the last couple of years. Death on this deck is called The Journey. And we see a big old raven and a few other ravens kind of like circling around the full moon. The raven looks pretty like you don't want to mess with this raven, and is seated on a skull of a buck, like a skull of a deer. And I think actually the raven is eating some of the skin off of the skull of this deer. So it's a little gruesome. So the Wildwoods Tarot is this very based like in the forest kind of deck. And we have this really direct representation of like, here is death. Here is the end of the line for this particular deer. And it is feeding this raven. And apart from the kind of like spooky factor of that, it's interesting to see like, okay, death leads into supporting and sustaining life.
Can I comment on that?
Please comment.
Of course, yes. That's just that perfect cycle. And I remember reading maybe it was a Joseph Campbell thing where it was like one of our main struggles as humans was the fact that you kill to live. Whether it's animals and each other or plants, like whatever it is, even that agricultural sense, like the rise of all of these agricultural based gods that also represented death and rebirth, planting seeds. Obviously, this is a good time to talk about, Persephone vibes and stuff like that. The link there between putting something underground and then it grows again, and then you harvest it, you cut it down, you kill it. And we must in order for us to live. So there's many connections on so many different fronts between those things. And it's been a struggle for humanity to cope with that.
Yeah.
And so everything.
And really, and that is what the scythe represents, right? Like the scythe is there for
Absolutely.
harvesting.
For harvesting, for cutting it down. And once again, and then you bury things, this idea of burying something and then it comes back, compelling.
Yeah. It comes back and we're like, are we talking about crops or zombies?
That's why it's so
Who can
compelling.
say?
Because there's so many ways to go with it.
You're going to keep watching. So I have a really spooky death card and a really kind of sweet death card next. And I'll give them to you in order. This is Death from the Wild Unknown. People have a variety of opinions about this deck. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Kim Kranz in general and her artwork. And this is a skeleton, possibly also a corvid, certainly a birdie kind of skeleton. There's a couple of stray feathers in there, but this bird is no longer of the mortal coil, and has this kind of like stark beauty. And I'm a walker. I've been like a real I'm like spiritual about my walks. I enjoy taking a walk around the neighborhood and kind of just getting the lay of the land and seeing what the energy feels like. And often I will come across dead birds that a cat or a car or whatever got, or roadkill or what have you, because I'm in a fairly rural / suburban area, and that just happens. And it's always startling. It's always like wow, it's always really interesting to see something that was alive and now isn't. And I never quite know how to react. I'm not a real, I wasn't really raised religious. So I'm not like, I don't have a prayer at hand or whatever, but I do want to always do something to kind of mark and honor the moment, just to be like, you were here, now you're not, and I honor you, that kind of vibe. And that's the vibe I really get out of this, is that very stark moment of like, we're looking death in the face, which many people are not comfortable with. Finally, we have a very beautiful flowery image of death here. By comparison, anyway, it's still kind of a, death is always a little bit of a bummer. This is from Crystal Visions Tarot. And there is a dead body here lying on like a stone, kind of like a, gravestone marker, but a very peaceful dead body. Like she could be sleeping. She could be taking a little napsy. And you see this shining light like flowing onto the dead body, and flowing up into the shining light are butterflies, kind of representing, what comes after, what remains, or what moves on. And standing over the body, we have a figure with wings, kind of angel style wings that are feathered. They do look like they may be white wings. We're not sure because they are in shadow. Wearing a cloak and holding a staff with an ankh on it. So we have this interesting kind of representation of beliefs, I think, again, affirming this sacredness of marking the passing of someone. And I really, forgive me if this is really inappropriate, I really think there's this interesting view of death as like the sacred bus driver to the next stop. You know what I mean? Like death is there we have this certainly in like, the idea of Hades, where there is the boatman and you have to give the boatman a coin, and this being like a sacred escort along your path to the next stage, which is frightening and nothing about. So you are probably terrified. And I think that's when I think of death in that way, that archetype becomes incredibly loving. That becomes an incredibly generous thing to do, to just show up for someone along their journey from the known to the unknown. That's what I have to share with you. Any closing thoughts?
I like that.
So we've been talking about death because we're fun. Happy Halloween, everybody. Now we're going to move into some spooky stories. These are user submitted stories. For the most part, I put these into a document and chose not to attach names to them. Some people said, go ahead and name me. Some people said, please keep me anonymous. And I was like, you know what? I won't make a mistake if they're all anonymous. So
That's
that's pretty much where I went with that. And I will share that. I kind of put them into that document in random order. We do have a longer, pretty, in my opinion, like a pretty spooky one at the end, which I think is a nice closer, as well as some like short and sweet, kind of spoopy stories as well. So I'm going to let Raven, my co-ghost, read these stories to you, and as she reads, I will be doing just a little bit of like kind of
spooky stuff.
spooky background vibes, looping.
Ominous tones,
Yes.
perhaps. Yes, talking about death, but we haven't really talked about what comes after it. And it's a question that is not easily answered, even to this day. We'd like to think, perhaps, that it is. And I think a lot of times these days, you hear ghost stories, it's easy to dismiss until it happens to you, until you see something, until you experience something. That's what changes most people's minds. Some people experience things since childhood. Some people have one freak moment that just seems to change everything. I think we're going to hear many different types today, submitted by Rorie folks. Thank you, everybody, for sharing, because I think it is hard also to share these types of events with folks. People are naturally skeptical. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm a skeptic myself. But when I am in ghost walk mode, I listen to people's stories frequently, and I try to do so without judgment because, of course, I'm there to tell them ghost stories, and they tell me theirs. Here's the first one. Sometime between the ages of 17 to 23, I was in my bed sleeping. I woke up in the middle of the night for no reason, and I rolled over to be face to face with a translucent little boy in olden days type of clothes. Now, I believe in spirits, but I don't fuck with them at all. Not interested, no thank you. So I told him, I don't have time for this. I turned my back to him and went back to bed. My sister's best friend swears my house is haunted and that she's heard voices numerous times. But I've lived there my entire childhood and young adulthood. That was my only paranormal experience.
I love that story. I just want to
Well,
say
no
that
kidding,
was
because you told him off, so that was your only paranormal experience. They were like,
that's
okay,
exactly
all right.
what I said. Right. You were like, hey, ghost, like, I don't have time for you. Go away. No wonder you didn't have any other experiences.
Of course you didn't.
Anyway, that's
Your boundary.
that's probably not my final interruption. I probably will be continuing
No,
having
please,
some running
I'll
commentary.
pause between them so we can comment.
Thank you. If you are tuned in, if you're watching this right now, if you're a patron or you shared a story and you want to add some commentary or whatever, or questions or whatever comes to mind, please do. We want your comments. We will share them. We'll get them into the episode because I like that. I like the idea of us all kind of like sitting around a campfire that is the internet and sharing stories. Anyway.
The blazing campfire of the internet. Okay, our next story. When I was a substitute custodian, I was working at an elementary school. I, on my break, started to outwardly make fun of ghosts. On my way back to the school, I took my camera and a book to read. When I was done cleaning the rooms, I went to the bathroom and heard sneakers making noise outside the bathroom. I heard laughter. One room was all fucked up. I said, "Fuck you, ghosts." I went to take a picture, but realized I did not have my camera. I went back to check my car, but I couldn't find it anywhere. It wasn't until I apologized that my camera fell out of my car as I was leaving. Another time, my coworker and I were talking about ghost stories, and we heard a loud bang. One of the chairs we had just stacked was thrown across the room. Another time, I had just finished placing all the chairs onto the desks. I closed the door to go into the hall, and I heard the very distinct sound of chairs falling. But when I opened the door, nothing had fallen. Perhaps a custodian of old? I'll Those are my comments, by the way. That was the end of those stories. I find some stories where, yes, it's a gamble, like our first story, to make fun of ghosts or to kind of give them the business.
Give them the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. Sometimes it can work. You put a boundary down, you lay down the law.
And the ghost's like, okay.
They're like, oh,
As in our
okay.
first, I didn't even realize that we had that juxtaposition right next to each other.
Yeah.
Good work, past me.
Okay. So again, those are sort of like the one-time stories. Here's a story submitted by somebody who is a medium who can sense spirits since childhood. So a lifetime of these types of feelings. And something that they sort of talk about here, a lot of people ask me, like, have I ever seen a ghost? Ghostly thing, sometimes it's not just seeing something, it's a sensation and it's a feeling. It's not all about orbs and seeing apparitions. There's a lot of other types of ghostly experiences. This story was submitted by a medium who has been able to sense spirits since childhood. My dad died when I was 11. After a few years of him adjusting, while he was a ball of anger, which I felt and it terrified me, he calmed down enough for me to feel him and hear him. And that's the way we always communicated. He'd give me messages for my siblings, and I always knew that he was there. Fast forward. I had a son around Christmas, and 2 years later, at the end of the semester, while I was a professor, in his birthday Christmas preparations, I was exhausted. It was the evening of the 25th. It was just my son and I. I was getting him ready for bed, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a light faintly glittering in the corner of the bedroom. Human-sized. My son points to it and says, "Who's that?" I answer, "Grandpa," because I just knew. All of a sudden, my son goes off into a full 2-year-old versions of a conversation, laughing and chattering. I turn to look fully, and there's what I would call a hologram of my grandpa. That is the first and last time he ever manifested in front of me. Over time, my son saw him a lot. He says he remembers an old man watching him in his crib, and later in his bed.
I love that. That's a sweet one.
Mm-hmm. And really, for them to describe it like a hologram, the level of detail. Sometimes you hear a ghost story, it's sort of a misty figure, it's a shadowy figure, it's something that you're not quite able to see. But I think the description as a hologram really goes to show how much detail they were able to see in this apparition.
Yeah, it's like a ghost, but it's also like Princess Leia saying, "You're my only hope."
That's right. And reaching out, who doesn't want to hang around for family? I find that theme a lot in many ghost stories around Wilmington as well. Okay. Our next story. I see a lot of flash images of spirits. I've been coming to terms with that fact, and these images I get are not my eyes playing tricks on me. The most profound one happened recently when I was at a friend's house. We were outside by his pool just chatting when I looked over to the side of his door. I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure walking out of the door. Legit walking. It had a strong build, definitely masculine. I thought I was playing tricks on me with my brain, so I shook it off. My friend noticed me looking at the door, and he said, "What's wrong?" I replied, "Nothing." I didn't mention that I saw anything. He then said, "Oh, did you see a tall, dark, shadowy figure at the door?" I said, "Yeah." I pointed exactly to where I saw it. I looked at him in shock to say, "You see it too?" He then tells me he was followed home by the spirit of a neighbor, that the spirit was a bit peeved at him because my friend had explored his property a bit after he died. Now he's in a bit of an ego battle with my friend. I guess the ghost is now invading my friend's property in a let's see how you like it manner. I later went into the house through the same door. I was walking to the bathroom and saw the same shadow figure standing next to the couch. Needless to say, I was freaked the hell out.
I'd be freaked out. I feel like shadow people.
Shadow people.
No, thank you.
Common experience. No, thank you. No, thank you. Hear that a lot.
I don't
Pattern
have time for
fingers.
this.
We don't have time for this. No, I do like that they have drawn that conclusion, though. Oh, how do you like it? Now I'm on your property.
Yeah. Which I really understand.
Yeah,
Like it's
ghosts
like when a neighbor
frequently.
steals your parking space and you're like, "Oh yeah? Guess where
That's
I'm going to park? I'm going to like block your walkway."
There's a little, ghostly karma going on there, it sounds like.
Oh, yes, we have a comment from the person who submitted that story.
Yay!
Sweet Yoshi icon, by the way. If you're not watching the video,
Yes.
you can see this broadcast on the YouTubes. But that's a really nice Yoshi user icon. Yoshi is always my driver in Mario Kart. Just saying.
I'm more of a Peach, but a big Mario fan all around. Yeah, ain't no one got time for that is exactly like the vibe of a lot of these stories, which again, use at your own risk, that particular methodology, and sometimes it works.
Oh, the person who submitted the story said the spirit definitely felt possessive.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Imagine too, I'm an introvert and I'm a New Yorker and I don't like people. So I'm just picturing being a ghost, right? Haunting my house, perhaps this house. And
Right.
some jerk is like moving in, doing stuff, messing up my house, and then I don't get my alone time. I'd haunt the heck out of him. I'd be annoyed. I'd be like, get out of my house.
Absolutely. In fact, this next story seems to have a similar vibe, and I like that it starts with, "Oh boy. Oh boy, my house ghost situation." Sounds like it could be a little sitcom. Oh boy, here's my house ghost situation. Where to start? My house was a brothel and speakeasy back in the 1900s. Nice. There's even a secret tunnel on the property. This sounds a lot like Wilmington. It is also housed overflow nuns and priests from the retreat center in the late 70s and early 80s. So there is a confessional in the basement of the main house as well. It's two separate buildings that were joined by an addition in the 50s. There's definitely more than one ghost here, and even non-believers have gotten freaked out by the activity. To me, they're more like annoying roommates at this point. It just sounds like a sitcom. One is definitely a child and likes attention. It comes out at parties and likes to play with my board games. Just last night, it dropped one of my decorated clothespin tags on my kitchen island when I was working in there. Then there's the bouncer, as I call him. He walks up and down the driveway. He looks in the windows. I had to rearrange my living room furniture so that the couch wasn't facing the windows because he kept creeping guests out. The one upstairs is the one we like the least. People read it as both male and female, but it definitely has opinions about people, and it messes with them if it's angry or doesn't like them. It frequently shows itself to people in the bathroom, and is one that has chased people out of the house. I've been told it's worse when I'm not home. Pulled my shower curtain rod on my head a couple of times, threw an entire shelf off the top of the dresser once. Across the room, broken glass. This place is beyond sage. It just ticks them off. Interestingly enough, a lot of bathroom stories also in Wilmington. Bathrooms, popular location apparently for ghosts to gather.
That's super rude.
Why? I know it's
Right.
very, like,
I'm
no
like,
boundary.
I feel like even if I just declare that I would haunt this house if I was stuck in it and there was someone moving my stuff around and, whatever,
But
redecorating in a way I didn't like.
you go into the bathroom, I'll be like, all right.
Right. I still have decency. I'm going to give you your we don't need to have that level of a relationship.
No. Right.
That's interesting.
Rude.
I also used to live in an apartment that was a building that used to be a church. I never had a supernatural experience, but I do remember it was a college town in Ohio, and there was a flasher, like a guy who would flash women, he was known as the flashlight flasher, and he would go kind of like from window to window in a trench coat, like you do. and
Like one does.
open up the trench coat and shine a flashlight on his business. And that's why he was the flashlight flasher, which is just so, I don't know. And there was like a think piece in the local paper about it, about how the flashlight flasher had been around for so many years.
Right.
And was it just one flashlight flasher, or was someone like passing the metaphorical torch? The literal torch, if you're using British slang.
Wow.
Anyway, that's my very unrelated story. But flashlights are spooky.
But also kind of creepy.
Right? It's like, I'm not just going to flash you. I'm going to make you think that maybe my business is going to tell you a ghost story.
If he had gone about that in the right way, he could have gotten paid for it. Started like an OnlyFans, but some people don't have the
Right?
vision.
That's right. It was pre OnlyFans. We have a couple comments from that last one. We have, maybe they like the water from the bathroom. That's really interesting. I love thinking about water as water as conductive.
Okay.
And we do see like paranormal things about ghosts interacting with electricity, and water is a conductive
Electricity
substance.
a lot. I do hear that a lot.
Yeah. Ange says extra creepy. And Jack and I says potty peeper. Which is, man, to the person who submitted that, who I'm not sure if they're tuned in, but that could be a way to get the bathroom hauntings to stop. Maybe just yell out potty peeper, like shame them into stopping.
Shame them.
Yeah,
Enough. Again, that seems to have worked for some of our other stories. So maybe
that was Ange too. Okay,
draw the line,
right? Set that boundary. I don't have
boundary.
time for this, and you don't get to see this.
Out.
Get out.
I don't know how spooky this is how the next story starts, but it touched me. My great uncle, Sid Robin, was a composer and also wrote lyrics for the classic big band tune Undecided. Then he had a small but memorable part in the Irving Berlin movie This Is the Army. When I stayed with him 2 times in LA, when I was young, he died when I was 11. In 1999, I had a business trip in LA, and I'm a nervous flyer. I've gotten better, but I had panic attacks before the trip. I woke up a couple of nights before, and I put on the TV, and his scene in the movie was playing on Turner Classic Movies. Then on the plane, I put on the jazz station to calm down, and Undecided was playing. I had a good trip. It was like he was saying hello. I didn't know him all that well, but I have great memories of my time in California with him.
Sounds very sweet.
Big coincidence,
right?
The obscurity in a certain sense of the movie, and it's not like a song you'd hear everywhere you go.
Right. It's the family. There's a family connection to this song, and probably the whole, like, this is a family story. You and I have family stories, about like, our grandmother's art and stuff like this. And obviously it is a family story about this uncle who was in this movie and wrote a song, and then for it to pop up, that's so cool.
Here is our next story. Have I ever told you about our resident ghost, Mr. Green? Well, Mr. and Miss Green owned the house 2 ownerships back. They lived here for a long time. Mrs. Green had some sort of stroke outside in the street and passed, and then Mr. Green died in the house. For some reason, I think it is Mr. Green haunting and not Mrs., but it could be both. Whoever it is obsessed with our dryer. It seems like whenever we let the house get really messy or we ignore it in some fashion, the dryer becomes possessed. It will randomly turn on and spin, but the display board is backed up and there's no heat inside. So there's no sense of, oh my God, danger, it's going to overheat, because it just turns on. You open the door, it stops. You close the door, on it goes. This goes on until we clean or fix something, and then it just stops. Wait, that isn't even the weird part. Sometimes when that happens, we unplug the dryer, and it keeps spinning. The Greens really want us to respect this space. Sure, classic concept there. Folks who owns the home or are related to its upkeep.
Yeah.
lingering on to make sure that it's inspected and kept properly.
Oh gosh, that's like my worst nightmare is a neat freak ghost.
Oh my God.
I mean, thank goodness I have a neat freak husband. If I had a neat freak ghost when I was single, it would be a bad haunting. They would not be happy with me.
I just don't really want to come back as a ghost to clean.
Right? Ain't nobody got time for that.
Seriously, can we not?
Yeah.
All right. I like this next story because it starts out in an oddities shop. Again,
Ooh, I
running
like
into
it.
a lot of classic themes here in these stories. And I saw someone say, like, these are validating. And I think, like, that's why I'm saying, like, oh, yeah, I hear this, I hear that. I think to hear these things and say, oh, yeah, there is a theme, or it is common to hear about ghosts in bathrooms of all places. So if that's something that happened to you, just know that you're not alone.
Potty peepers, if
So
you
think there's
will.
potty peepers out there.
We have some advice from the chat, actually.
Yes.
Potty peeper. Yell potty peeper on a megaphone,
Sure.
which for some reason you have on you in the bathroom. What? You don't carry megaphones? This is the advice if you are being haunted by a bathroom ghost.
Like I said, I actually keep that mic pack on me a lot. So when I'm on the pub crawl in these haunted locations, I could definitely just yell, "Potty peeper!" And I feel like that works for non-ghosts too. Should there be a living potty peeper in there?
Right.
They'll be
Even more important to
barred
call
to be
call that
called out
peeper
as
out.
well. Right. 100%. So yeah.
You guys also have the Google Home in your house. I have heard you use like the broadcast command.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could publicly humiliate that ghost.
True.
You could be in the bathroom, pick up your phone and be like, Google broadcast potty peeper.
Good ideas, everybody. Thank you. As I said, this one begins in an oddities shop. I love that. I was in a small town with an oddities shop. I didn't actually know what a true oddities store was like. I was more used to like, oh, fun, skulls, rocks, etc. I was wandering around with some friends, and I was a little put off by some of the stuff that glorified a serial killer, so I went to the opposite end of the shop. I saw a weird cabinet with some odd things inside. Creepy dolls, skulls, trinkets with notes next to it about the previous owner. To read it, I leaned in real close. I can't recall if my nose actually touched the glass, but a friend quickly pulled me back and pointed out that the cabinet said everything in there was a cursed item, not to touch even the glass. Fast forward later, I get home alone. After a little bit of time, I head to bed. My 3 cats are acting weird, a little jumpy. When I go to sleep, all 3 sleep on top of me. This is extra weird because they never sleep in my bed, and 2 of the cats did not get along that well. Like my cats are pinning me down, and I had woken up because I felt like someone was looking through my window. But I dismissed it as, nah, that's weird. I'm on the 2nd floor, that's not a thing. The next day, a friend is over who does practice and a few things. Always was paranormal sensitive and could see shapes since we were kids. I tell her about all of this, and she goes on to say, that explains why there's been this menacing presence staring at us outside of your window this whole time. Not something you want to see looking out your window.
No, you do not. It's creepier to not see it, though. Right? Your friend is like, oh, there's that menacing presence outside your window, and you're like, wait, I didn't see it. How long has that thing been there?
The hoops.
The what?
I believe this is our last story. It's a little longer.
Yes.
It's a little spooky. Oops. So once again, folks, thank you so much to everybody who sent stories. And I know we've been having fun. Obviously, we're not dismissing your experiences in any way. And I want to let you know that I hear stuff like this all the time. Lots of classic themes here. If you have a house haunting, a possessive type of energy experience, I hear that all the time. Bathrooms for some reason. Damn these bathrooms. Oddity shops, cursed items.
Right? had some big Slytherin energy right there, that one.
Here is our final story. I was so hopeful for a new start moving in with my friend Kathy. She had asked me for the favor of moving in after her long-term boyfriend and she went their separate ways. Thinking things would be fun and lighthearted to live with a friend again, I agreed to join our lives together. We began to move in the end of the summer. Kathy had started moving her items in a day before. She got her 2 cats, Oscar and Onyx, settled in as well. It was a first-floor railroad apartment, so I was in the middle room, which led directly into the living room. Next to that was the kitchen and the bathroom area, which I could view with my door open. As time went on, we both unpacked our items little by little, as well as personalizing our living area by filling the built-in bookcase, hanging shelves, running string lights in the kitchen and living room, as well as some artwork and more. It seemed as if everything was coming together nicely, meshing both of our styles together, building a very edgy design to our living space. We finally decided to have our housewarming towards the beginning of October. We had more than 20 people in our 2-bedroom apartment, so we decided to shut the lights off in the house and let the decorative string light illuminate our gathering. At one point, Kathy and I were standing by our fridge in the kitchen. We had installed shelves above it that I ran string lights on myself and ran them all through the kitchen area as well as adding some to the bamboo on top of the fridge. As she and I were chatting, some of the string lights completely turned off in the kitchen. Seconds before, I saw the leaves on top of the bamboo shake as if the wind went right through them. Kathy and I were in shock. "Did you see that?" I said the leaves were shaking on the bamboo. She said the orb of light that made the leaves shake. I was in disbelief, but the party must go on, so we turned on the main lights so I could climb on a ladder and see why the lights had gone off. As I was reaching for the extension cord that I had firmly plugged in and mounted to the top of the ceiling, I saw that it was just disconnected enough where it was dangling out of the socket but still connected. I was surprised because I knew I had pressed those 2 pieces together to the point that it would take a lot of force for it to be disconnected. The party continued, and this wouldn't be a worry until later. As time went on, there was a lot of friction in the house. Kathy wanted to always have people over even when she wasn't home, when I wanted peace and quiet in the house. So there was a weekend where everyone of Kathy's friends and family went on a ski trip, and I was invited but chose to stay home alone with just the cats. I had deep cleaned the house, lit candles, and was relaxing for the weekend. As the night proceeded, I had gone to the kitchen to get something to drink, and I got some water out of a carafe we had. Me being lazy, I drank from the bottle instead of pouring a cup. As I finished my refreshing drink, I turned to the window in the kitchen that overlooked the backyard of the property. As I turned, I heard a man tell me, "Don't do that." My head shot over to the window. Sure enough, there was a man at the window. I saw him from his shoulders to his head. He was bald with a diamond earring on the right side, and he was in a black hoodie. I was so frazzled that I grabbed Onyx and Oscar and ran to my bedroom and locked the door. The following night, on Sunday, I and Kathy's mutual friend Sasha had stopped by to sleep over so she could spend time together with Kathy the next day as she made her return from a ski trip. Sasha was a very upbeat raver girl who was pint-sized but full of energy. Sasha was aware I didn't share my bed with anyone, so she was okay sleeping on the sofa or in Kathy's bed. She chose the sofa. As I was about to doze off, suddenly I hear Sasha scream as she busts through the door, rams herself underneath my sheets, and screams, "Someone's in your kitchen window." I was in shock, so I asked Sasha, "You saw him too?" I immediately got frustrated. Why is this person coming to our window and scaring us? So I went to the window to confront this man about why he was harassing me and invading my home via the window. As I approached the window, there was no one there. So I went to look closer to see where he went. About 30 feet from the window was a very large grassy yard with a big tree in the center. Under the tree, I saw a floating torso wearing a black hoodie over its head. You couldn't see the face anymore because it was shadowed out. I began to freak out. I looked straight down from my window only to notice my window is about 10 feet off ground level. There was no way a human could have presented their head and shoulders in my window without a ladder, and there were no ladders in sight. I slammed the window shut and locked it, and had Sasha sleep in my bed with me that night. The following day, when Kathy arrived home, Sasha and I sat down to explain what had occurred. She expressed to me that the day she moved in, before I moved in, she left the front door open and a woman came to the entrance and disappeared into the hall when she went to look for her. But then I described how the man looked and her face turned pale. She explained to me that when she lived in Puerto Rico as a teen, the same spirit had visited her and her stepsister. The visits began when she found a black magic book on the library in the island. She took it home to read it. After she began reading it, she said weird things were happening to her in her house, and that the man was part of it. He would show himself occasionally to her, and one evening her sister and her were sleeping in the bedroom. She woke up to her sister screaming. She wakes up to see her sister getting thrown across this room by this white, bald-headed man dressing in this black hoodie, diamond earring. She saw him, though, from head to toe. Her parents barged into the room. They saw him as well. Her stepsister was injured. She had to receive medical help from ramming her head into the wall so hard. It was clear that they needed help, and her mother called upon Santeria, someone who practices white magic. He was able to clean the house and cast the spirit out. It seems to have taken a special angry interest in Kathy's stepsister, and she needed to be cleansed as well. Kathy failed to tell anyone about the book she had found at the time. She carried it with her to New York, and she told me it was on our bookshelf. I demanded she get rid of this book, as did Sasha, but little did I know getting rid of the book would make no difference. The building we moved into is very old, and the books that are touched with black magic can bring a spiritual uprising on any property, making spirits more powerful. A few weeks had passed, and it seemed everything had subsided. I even started dating someone new and began bringing him into the house. Even though things were getting better in my personal life, my living situation had gotten much worse between Kathy and me. My current boyfriend was always coming over and sleeping due to how bad things were getting, and he feared for my safety because she always had people over. One night while he was taking a shower, I was laying down on the sofa. Onyx was sitting on top. Both cats got very overprotective of me because during our fights, Kathy stopped taking care of them and I took over. I was laying down on the TV. I was laying down with the TV off, and Onyx started making these deep growling sounds. It started to make her hair stand on end. I didn't understand why, so I sat up a little. I felt a gust of wind pass by my face. In the living room with no windows, Onyx leaped up into my lap and went into a little crazy growling, meowing, arching his back. I grabbed him and went to the bathroom because I was scared to be alone with Colin, my boyfriend. As Colin and I got ready for bed, he assured me everything was okay and not to worry. Of course, I believed him. It must have been 3 a.m. Colin and I were in deep sleep, and I woke up to him making sounds and shaking. When I touched him, he seemed to snap out of whatever was going on. He said that he couldn't talk or move, and he felt something overcome him. And when I touched him, he felt it leave. After that, there were no more weird acts that occurred, but only to Colin. We would be sitting and watching TV, and all the decorative items on the shelves above the sofa would fall on him, and there was no movement on that wall. He was also getting locked in rooms or getting locked out of the apartment when we never locked the doors. We concluded that whatever was in the apartment didn't like Colin. Didn't like Colin being there and protecting over me. On top of all of the negativity the fighting brought, Spirit was feeding on these energies. We packed up finally and moved almost overnight.
That one's such a. There's so much there. It's
Long
not,
haunting.
yeah, and it's like every part of it is like, wait, I thought we already had the spooky part.
Right. True.
I remember I was reading the first time I read that one, like the ghosty guy first makes his appearance when she's drinking out of the carafe, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, "Don't do that." And I
Right.
I read it and I'm like, "Friggin' like mansplaining from beyond the grave. Like, can we not?"
Can you leave
Like
me alone? Let me live.
Yeah, right. Like go home, guy.
Very
Um
interesting.
yeah.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for sharing your spooky tales with us.
Yes,
Not
thank you for
easy to admit to things like this sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes I ask this question, have you ever had a paranormal experience? Because I'm interested, I'd like to know. And it's like a cool icebreaker to get to know. And sometimes people are like, yeah, let me tell you. And other times people like freeze right up. And you never know if
Sure.
they're freezing up because they're like, I don't believe in that. Or if they're like, I need to not believe in that.
Right.
Have you ever had any kind of spooky paranormal experiences?
Not really, no.
I
No.
will share. I had a dream, and it wasn't spooky, it was very loving. Um, about our grandmother. I think I did tell you about it. It was in 2020 when things were crazy.
Mm.
I dreamed I was going into a house, which I described the house to my mom. Because my mom was mentioned in this dream. And I'm kind of walking through, and there's a pillow with like stitching on it. You know what I mean? Like embroidery, like a message embroidered into it. And it said something about the Queen of Cups having the strong energy in order to get us through these nightmare times. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And then it mentioned my mother. I don't know if it was by name or if it was like just, in a way that like in my family, I'm like, yeah, that's my mom. Um, so this is our grandmother. For those who are listening, we're cousins. This is our shared grandmother and my mom, Raven's aunt. And I told my mom about it. And my grandma was a tarot reader, and she had read, she was, kind of old school. She would always, if she read me, read me as the Page of Pentacles because I was young when, at that time, and I was an earth sign. Now, my mom is also an earth sign. So I'm like, well, my mom wouldn't be the Queen of Cups to her. She would be, the Queen of Pentacles because she's an earth sign. Anyway, I took my mom out for coffee, and I'm like, Mom, I got to tell you about this dream I had. And I described the house. And first of all, she said it sounded like a house they might have lived in together. And secondly, she said, oh, well, she did try to read for me as the Queen of Pentacles, but that is my significator. But she said it just didn't feel right. And she eventually started always using the Queen of Cups for me. So it
Oh.
really felt like an interesting confirmation, like this thing that made me go, wait a minute, that's not real. That's not right. And then my mom going, no, that's what that was my card. It was the Queen of Cups. And it was interesting to me too that it was, it was 2020 that I had this dream, and it was like a reference to these nightmare times, which my
Mm.
goodness, but it did feel like we have these like visits in some of these stories that are like just meant to be comforting. And I look back now and think maybe that's what it was. It was just like, hey, daughter, it would have been, our grandmother's daughter, you can do this, you have what it takes to get through this. So I don't know. I think that's pretty interesting. I didn't know our grandmother as well as you did when she was with us, but I have a painting of hers hanging in my feminist fairy cave here, and I have had a couple of really interesting dreams with her. So that's
Mm.
interesting.
And since you say that, I was going to comment earlier. You had that last card that you pulled, and you said, the woman looks so peaceful, she could almost be sleeping. And there
Mm-hmm.
is that sort of link there between the subconscious and dream state as a sort of death state, or like death light. Death with benefits, I believe, is what the
Death with
many
benefits.
memes, yeah, like the act of being asleep. And of course, there's, Shakespeare references to be made, but there
You
being a
have just named this
connection.
episode.
There is definitely a link there between the sleeping stage, dreaming, the subconscious, the other side.
Yeah.
Tapping into communication from that other realm, the darker place.
We do talk about our subconscious. We talk about the veil thinning.
Right.
And I've been listening to Carl Jung. Like I got an audiobook out from my
Sure.
library, and he speaks a lot about the unconscious and the shadow and the things that many people would rather not face. And from a very psychological perspective, like this was a psychologist and really laid out a couple of interesting schools of thought about the unconscious and how it affects us. And went on to say that even in psychological circles, a lot of people were deeply uncomfortable with their unconscious
Mm.
because it felt like the bottom of the ocean, these unplumbed depths. And that's interesting because it relates to me to the way we feel about the unknown of death. Like it's just like, who knows what's in there?
Right. It contributes to our fear of it. But I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, embracing that to some extent. Not that you have to be psyched about dying or loved ones dying, not that. But I think Halloween time, creating that space where we can say, okay, we are looking the shadow in the face. We are accepting that this is part of what happens. And to some extent, even celebrating it. It's important to take that time to do that also. And that doesn't mean that it's dismissive or that doesn't suck sometimes, but that we can also have space to say, we get it. It's part of the situation here. We have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
Hard
Or I
to
don't know.
do.
I'm always saying I don't have to, and I won't.
I refuse.
Hard pass. I don't have time for this.
And apparently that's what ghosts are saying. No, thank you. I will not come to terms.
Like,
Jack.
nope.
Got
Actually,
things
I'd
to
like,
do. And
yeah.
that might track. The more you talk, the more I feel like you might end up becoming a ghost. So you might want to be careful there. You'd be like, I have things to do. Like, I'm busy.
I
Dad,
do joke with my
I still
husband
have
that
some
I'm
stuff to
immortal.
do. Yeah.
And maybe that is the way I'm immortal. Maybe I'll just haunt. I mean, I'm just going to say, I think I'd be great at haunting. I feel like it would be a skill that I'd be good at. I don't know if I'd enjoy it though, because it's an extrovert's game. Do I want to
There's
haunt
something.
someone, or do I want to sit and read a
No.
book?
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
maybe I would like haunt them by just petting their cats. And the way, especially if I didn't like them, if they're like living in my house and I'm mad at them, I would, become better friends with their cats than they were. I
Right.
wouldn't be like, how sometimes like animals are afraid of ghosts. No, no, no. I know how to
No,
talk to a
they'd
cat.
always be in like one corner of the room. People, why are they always there?
Purring
'Cause they're
happily.
getting ghost pets.
Because they're getting ghost pets. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this both spooky and silly episode. I really wanted to do something special for Halloween, and I was so excited to get to have Raven on. And I do want to, before we go, talk a little bit about Prettie Creepie. So Prettie Creepie is a project. We're both musicians. We're both singer-songwriters, and Prettie Creepie is like this musical side project that you started. I just want you to like share with us what the inspiration for Prettie Creepie is.
Thank you. Thank you for making that space for this. Prettie Creepie is, I wanted it to be its own thing away from some of my other like art pages because it does have that kind of like niche vibe. It is very much spooky stuff. It is very much goth girlfriend stuff. It is
Girlfriend.
that side of things. It's the Persephone aesthetic of, the half wanting to be that fairy princess, half embracing that underground queen. And so Prettie Creepie embraces those things. A lot of the things that I share are my own makeup work. Like I said, the ghost walk has influenced me in a lot of directions. And now I also do a lot of face painting. So I did follow a lot of folks on Instagram and things like that, seeing the amazing things that people can do with makeup these days. Wow.
Yeah.
and
Puts me to
blending
shame.
that idea really. And I mean, blending those kind of aesthetics once again together of like the creepier realistic face paint versus like the prettier just makeup. Makeup is something that has taken me a while to kind of get to as a person. Like I kind of shunned femininity for a long time and sort of coming to reclaim that, but reclaim it with a skull half also.
Yes.
So there is like a sense of that reclamation, like taking back like prettiness, but in a way that feels more relevant. So you can find a lot of makeup things. On the music side of things, I tend to listen to a lot of chill hop and chill hop adjacent music. Beats, instrumental things for reading. I do a lot of reading for cleaning. I mean, you name it, like I'm asking Google for chill hop. And I really wanted something that had a little bit more of a spooky vibe. So there is some stuff out there, but I started making my own also. So the Pretty Creepy YouTube is going to be more of that type of thing where it's longer videos of what would you call it? Goth hop? Horror
Goth
hop?
hop. I
Goth
love it. Yeah,
of
you had
goth
some great
hop.
one-liners, like chill hop to it wasn't like to die to, but you had some great like
Or like to
spooky.
possess the living too or whatever. Yeah,
Yes.
it wanted to have that same vibe that you see like this chill hop subculture, but of course, once again, like subverted for spookiness. And not to say I'm the first person to do it. There is actually like a good community of this like almost like goth hop, horror hop. But I started putting, weird screams and weird horror movie sound effects over this stuff. So it's fun. That's fun. And of course, because it's the person I am, you can find lots of fun memes on Pretty Creepy as well. And I'd say
Yeah, you
all of the
were
different venues have their different vibe. Like Instagram, you're going to find a lot of the photos of the makeup looks and the fashion side of it. YouTube, you're going to find more of the music side of it. Facebook, you're going to find, again, those photos, but more memes and things like that. So there's a little bit on each type of media to follow.
And speaking of the fashion, you have a pretty creepy shop, don't you?
I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do
If
have a
you
red bubble.
if you want to go get that goth ghost girlfriend look for that like Persephone like in the underworld getting ready for her date with Hades kind of vibe, it really is like I look at that shop and I'm like, "Oh, I want to buy everything."
Yeah, I do too. It's kind of a problem. Like, make a shop and make money, and I'm like, or spend money on all of the things that I've made that are right up
Yes,
my alley now.
I have definitely gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, so on Redbubble, Pretty Creepy. Again, just Pretty Creepy with that IE,
I
thinking
love the
Betty Page,
IE.
the
What a mood.
E. Again, and yeah, and like you said, like, it has that high school vibe. Yeah, like, signs with maybe, like, one heart and one spider or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I was gonna
Would
say,
have
like, are there hearts above the eyes? Because I feel like there
maybe
need to
on one
be.
of them. Yeah.
Maybe just one
One has a heart, one has an X. I don't know,
or a skull or
It's got that
something.
yeah, it's got that duality vibe to it.
By the way, speaking of duality, if you all are listening to this podcast, you can go see the video on YouTube and it's worth it just for Raven's makeup look, if
Oh,
nothing
yes.
else. It's actually my favorite thing that you do when you have this like half like stark like horror beautiful vibe. It's
That's
like
the Pretty
awesome.
Creepy thesis, that's what I call
Yeah.
this. So we mess around with this particular look a few different ways, but yeah, it's the Pretty Creepy.
The pretty creepy.
The
I love it. Well, we're going to wrap things up. I want to share a couple of like housekeeping items. Where can you find me? I'm going to be posting links to the Pretty Creepy extravaganza in the show notes. I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. This is not usually what we do on this podcast. Usually it's kind of like a fun, witchy, self-development, personal growth kind of podcast, but it's October, it's spooky season. I was like, the heck with all of that. We're going to do ghosts. If you do enjoy this podcast, please rate it and review it wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could take a moment to share it with someone who might be interested, that'd be wonderful. That's like, like sharing with a friend is the way I want to grow. I want people to just like pass the word. If you would like to support the podcast financially and unlock exclusive perks, such as getting a backstage pass to the recording of every podcast, we have a couple patrons right now watching this on YouTube as we record it. You can do that at patreon.com/Sassafras Tarot for $1 per month or more. Patrons get access to things like extra content, personalized tarot card pulls, a witchy Discord community. I love our Discord. It's super fun. And more. If you have a question, idea, or suggestion, you can email me anytime at sassafrastarot@gmail.com. And you can follow me on social media at Sassafras Tarot on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you would like to order a reading, you could do so at my Etsy shop, which is Sassafras Tarot. You can follow Prettie Creepie on all of the places as well: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Redbubble if you want to get some of that really sweet Prettie Creepie merch.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you're a $5 and up patron, you will be getting a bonus episode, and that bonus episode will include some Prettie Creepie music. So you will get some of that, chill hop to Summon Bloody Mary too. I don't know.
That's right. Exactly.
Thank you so much, everybody, for spending time with us today. You're marvelous. My name is Rorie Kelly. This is Raven of Prettie Creepie. That's with an IE. I always try to say it so you can hear the IE.
Creepy.
Exactly. All right. You are wonderful. Be well. Stay spooky, but not so spooky that you lose your sleep. Sleep is important. Stay spooky. Stay hydrated. Farewell, farewell.
Bye.